Hello all. Today we're going to have a talk with Mr. Glenn Collins, General Director of the Moscow office of Turner International, the company which supervises the construction of Federation Tower. Good afternoon, Mr. Collins. So what are your company's responsibilities in this project?
Well, good afternoon, George. My name's Glenn Collins. I'm the country manager here with Turner International. Our responsibilities are for the general construction management on the project at Federation Tower here in Moscow. We're engaged here to provide overview of the construction processes and to add our high-rise experience to the process of the construction. And we're also here to make the quarterly reports to the investor so that he can understand the investment process and where the money's being spent and to what quality and to the schedule that's currently being maintained on the project.
Okay, thank you. So what project were you engaged in prior to starting Federation Tower construction?
What, me personally or the company?
I guess the company.
The company?
Okay.
Well, we were engaged in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, where I first met Mr. Polonsky, and we were working on the Emirates Palace Hotel, and that was back in March of 2005 when the company was contracted. Actually, the company was contracted in 2004, December, to start work on the project, and we met with Mr. Polonsky in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and we were working on the Burj Khalifa and the Emirates Palace Hotel in Abu Dhabi.
So I believe that was the reason why you were selected.
Well, one of the reasons why we're selected is because we're an international project management company with specialists in high-rise construction, but also the fact that we're Turner International and we've got experience in most forms of construction management throughout the world, and you know, particularly in high-rise construction.
How would you describe the peculiarities of construction in Russia?
Well, after living on the project for the last 6 years, it's been an interesting time. The peculiarities were that the packaging strategy was never actually finalised in such a way that we would recommend carrying out high-rise construction. Normally you have a general contractor, and we try to have the general contractor responsible for many of the responsibilities under his package. But one of the nuances of working in Federation Tower was the multiple packaging of the work, which made it very difficult for people to monitor the schedule, to monitor the cost, and to monitor the actual work in place at any time. So that's a particular nuance which is new to me, but I think it's quite normal in Russia that they split the packages up into many packages so as to maybe limit the risk of engaging one particular contractor. But in international contracting, normally you find that the responsibility is normally one or two general contractors. The packaging strategy was not really followed on this project in a way that I would have gauged it to be a normal process. The Russian norms and regulations are new to me, but it took us time to get used to the SNPs and GOST as opposed to OSHA and other international marked benchmarks that we work to. But over the years we've now become used to the Russian way of doing business, and you know, although we're an international company, we try to think of ourselves as being international stroke local after the period of time we've been here. But we like to maintain our accountability as being an international construction company.
Thank you. How do your company survive the previous recession?
Well, by diversifying into many other markets. Turner decided, Turner have been in business for 110 years, and we've gone through many recessions. We've gone through 2 world wars, the recession of the 1930s, the current economic recession. And what we've done is that we've diversified into mainly public works. We've acquired civil engineering companies in the United States. We've also diversified our operations in the project management market by opening up offices in Azerbaijan, looking into work in Kazakhstan, and also opening up offices in Serbia and Montenegro to see what work was down those part of the world. We've also expanded into the Far East, opened up offices in Kuala Lumpur, Vietnam, tried to get into Cambodia, but generally we're following the pattern of where the money is. Turner are following where the work is.
So what do you think about the current phase of the Federation Tower construction?
Well, we're coming into a critical part of the construction. We've got a deadline to meet, which is written in stone that we've got to meet these deadlines. We've now got a budget which we've got to follow, and we've got agreed schedules that the contractors have got to maintain. We're finding it's more of a responsibility now that we're working directly with the bank through Mirax to provide the bank their quarterly reports. So we're now coming into, as I said, to a critical time where we're actually monitoring the expenditure, and we're monitoring the schedule, and we're trying to maintain all the parties, to keep all the parties happy, so that the project can be built by the required date. But you know, we're coming into a situation now where today we've lost production up on the concrete board due to the cold weather, and weather and those Russian winters that we're coming into now will delay the production up on the working platform, because up there it's like minus 31, 32. And you know, we've got to realise that you can't do the same production in the springtime as what you can do in the winter time. But yeah, it's a very, very critical time of the project that we're coming into now.
Thank you. I understand you're the General Director of the Russian office.
Yeah, yeah.
Of Turner.
Yes.
So, could you tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from?
Yeah, I've been with, well, there's Turner World and there's Glenn's World. Turner World is I've been with Turner 11 years. I'm coming up to my 7 years. We've been here in Moscow now in April. I came here in 2005. We're now coming in 2012. I've been in the industry since I was 16. When I first left school and got an apprenticeship with a major UK construction company. I've always been in the construction industry. I've never known any other industry to work in. And prior to joining Turner, I worked for many contractors. I worked in the Middle East, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Dubai, small time in Africa when we was building some work with Turner in Angola. So I can say that I've had a good all-round experience, and I've always found it a very interesting industry to be involved with.
Quite a scope.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel about staying working in Russia?
Well, I say I've always gone through my whole of my career by saying what you have to go where the work is, and the work's brought me to Russia. And we're very happy to be on the project. We're happy to be involved in the project. We feel like we're now bringing some value, more value than we've ever done before, because of our reporting processes and the fact that people are now taking note of what we're telling them, and the fact that the reports are now being read and actioned upon. And to answer your question is, I'm very happy to stay here as long as the client keeps us employed.
So these 7 years, did they make you a bit Russian?
I should imagine so. My Russian is not exactly first class Russian, but I call it survival Russian. As you can see, I'll never starve because I understand how to survive in the restaurants, and I can always get home at night by the taxis. But yeah, I try to think of myself as being a local, in the sense that I live in a country, I live in Moscow, and I try and I enjoy all what Moscow offers.
What area do you live in Moscow?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to live in a Mirax property. I live in an apartment building called Slady Kluchi 2, Golden Keys 2, which was a Mirax project, and we've been there ever since we arrived in Moscow. Since 2005 we moved in, and this is our second apartment on the complex, and my wife's very happy there and we're very happy there. Made some good friends on the complex, and we find it's a good place to live. It's in the country, if you can call Moscow having a country, but we live in the countryside. We can walk along the river in the summertime, and we can go walking in the fields when the weather's good. But it's a nice area, nice area. Mosfilm Minska.
Thank you. Do you have any clubs for expats to get together in Moscow?
Yeah, there's many societies that the British and Americans and Australians have brought to Russia. I belong to the British Business Club, and there's the American AmCham, which is American Chamber of Commerce. But there's also many charitable organisations which are funded by expats to give money to local orphanages and hospitals. There's the St George's Association, there's the St Andrews Association, there's the St David's Association, the English, Welsh, Scottish, and there's also the rugby club, the not Dubai Dragons, Moscow Dragons Rugby Club, and they do a lot of work for charity. But you know, like most people, after work you tend to go home because of the travel. You just want to get home. You don't really want to go out too much after work. But we tend to find that the British Business Club is once a month, which is a good meeting point for all the expats that live and work in Russia.
Thank you. And maybe the last question, so what would you tell expats who are hesitating whether to start a career in Russia or not?
Well, as to starting a career, I would say that because of the visa requirements, you must have a career before you come to Russia. I found it an adventure, and I think anyone who comes from a different part of the world should come here with a very open mind, because it is different. Although the culture is different, the people are very friendly and the people are very warm once you break down the barriers of you're a foreigner. But once you learn a little bit of the language and once you start to mix with the locals, I would say 100% thoroughly recommend coming to Russia and earning your living and paying your taxes and all the good things that come by having 4 seasons. Coming from the Middle East, where it was either hot or hot or hot, to come to Russia was a great change for us European. Get the 4 seasons again, you know, which is very, very nice.
Thank you. And would you say that Russian frosts make you consume more alcohol than in England? The
Russian frost, well, when I first came to Moscow back in 2005, my wife said to me, because my wife is Russian, she said to me, there's 2 things you should never do. One is stand out in the frost without wearing your hat, and the second one is don't try and keep up with the Russians when it comes to drinking. And since then, I've always kept her advice. Always wear a hat and never drink with a Russian. So to answer your question, I drink, but only to keep warm.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Collins, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. Good to see you. Thank you.